Hello and welcome back. We're now talking about the Gabby Petito and Brian Laundrie cases. There's been a lot going on, and we're going to touch on a few of those. Plus, we're going to try to get into the new body cam footage that was brought out. Shows that outside Moab, right near Grand Arches National Park entrance, from a different perspective. I see you. I knew you were going to show up if nobody else did. My one true trooper. Okay, Gabby Petito and Brian Laundrie. Right now, where it stands, we're waiting on autopsy reports for Gabby Petito. We got the preliminary report that she did die by homicide, so we have manner of death, but we don't have cause of death. I'm still very interested to know if she was shot because I still have kind of a theory about Brian possibly being connected to the Moab murders, even though officially they're saying that the two incidents or the two cases are not related. There has been talk that Brian has a concealed carry permit in Florida. And if he does, then most likely he owns a gun. The thing about a concealed carry permit in Florida is reciprocity. Most other states in the United States, if you carry a concealed, if you have a concealed carry permit in Florida, you are allowed to carry, to concealed carry in other states. There are very few who don't reciprocate with Florida. I believe it was Duty Ron that was talking about it, and he was saying how Florida has one of the most powerful concealed carry permits around for the simple fact of how many states reciprocate with Florida. So I'm still really interested to know if he owned a gun, or even if he didn't, if he had access to one. Did his parents own a gun? Did his sister own a gun? Did anyone in his close family own a gun? Um, I'm also looking for information as to what caliber of weapon was used against the young ladies in. Yeah, I've seen that where friends were saying that he, like people that he worked with, were saying that he had a concealed carry, and some of them mentioned specifically a 380. So I'm just trying to get some solid info on that. Right now, that's what I want to believe, is that he did have a permit and that he did own a 380. That's what I want to believe. But that is just my belief based on the things that I've read and heard, but I haven't seen anything solid. So I don't want anyone to think that I'm putting it out there that, yeah, Brian owned a 380. I'm not saying that, but I believe it. Uh, but yeah, I'm really curious as to the caliber of weapon that the young ladies in Moab, uh, what was used against them, and how closely that might tie in to Brian. Another question that's been on my mind is his parents. Like, how much knowledge, how much guilty knowledge do they have? I saw that picture as well. Michelle After Dark, she showed I believe it was a TikTok picture collage that Gabby had posted where she was holding the gun like up by the side of her face. Um, she was saying that you really couldn't tell if it was a gun, but I was looking at it. It's a gun. Uh, his parents, though, I'm really wondering how much they actually know, because I still find that trip that he made to Florida in the middle of their road trip when he left Utah and came back to Florida to help his dad move stuff into that storage unit, is still bothering me. Like, that just stands out to me like a sore thumb. Like, what was up with that trip? What was so urgent that you had to have him fly basically halfway across the country to come and move some stuff that couldn't wait until they got back, or no one else could help you with it? Or, yeah, the whole thing about that trip just stands out as kind of wonky to me and questionable. Um, Of course, we know that Gabby was seen alive as late as was the 26th or the 27th of August. So he obviously didn't do anything to her at that time. But was that his like preparation for doing something? Did he already have the thought in his mind that he was going to do something to her and that she wasn't coming back? Maybe moving her stuff out of the house was a precursor to moving it to some other location and saying that, oh, she hasn't lived here in a while. We broke up, blah, blah, blah. We tried to work it out on the trip, but it didn't work out. She left me there. All kinds of possibilities. But there's just something about that trip that just it sticks out to me. It bugs me. And I feel like that his parents know a whole lot more than what they're letting on, because I find it hard to believe that this young lady lived in their house for over a year, was engaged to be married to their son. They go on a road trip. He shows up at home without her, but with the van. And you didn't ask him any questions. He didn't tell you anything. Then you go on a camping trip a few days later. She's missing, but you go on a family camping trip like, oh, well, nothing to it. So I think that his parents know some details, and I think they may know specific details, dates, times, and places. Um, we know that the arrest warrant that was issued for him was for credit card fraud. They haven't said that it was Gabby's card or a card connected to Gabby, but I think we can pretty much connect the dots that he had her card, her bank card, that he got some money off of it, or he bought some things. People are saying $1,000, but the warrant actually said, the indictment actually says more than 1,000. It doesn't give a specific dollar amount, but it says that it aggregates to over $1,000. That could be $1,000 in one sense. It could be $3,000. There's been some confusion as to how could he possibly have gotten that much money off the card. Let's just say he did get cash. People are saying like, oh, you can only get like 250 out of an ATM. You can only get 500 out of an ATM. That's not true. That is true of a lot of accounts, a lot of ATMs, but depending on your bank's account settings, whatever protocols the bank uses to decide how much money you can pull out. I've personally seen people go to an ATM and pull out several grand. So it's possible that he could have pulled that much cash off there. Um, yeah, it doesn't say a specific amount, is what I'm saying. So it could have been anything over $1,000. It could have been any amount. But I think they go in sections with that, like um up to 1,000, and then like 1,000 to 5,000. I'm just throwing out random numbers because I don't know the exact numbers, but I know that like when you say you get a charge for writing a bad check, I know that where I'm from, it'll be based on the dollar amount to determine the level or degree of the misdemeanor or felony, like under $50 or over 50 but under 100, over 100 but under 500, something like that. So I want to guess that he got over 1,000, but he probably got less than 5,000, because I think 5,000 is one of those markers. Um, but yeah, that's another thing too. Now, what I've heard is that his parents are worth over 5 mil, or worth about $5 million. So that's not enough money to help him run forever, but that's definitely enough money for them to give him a damn good head start. And once I found out that his parents are worth that much, because I didn't think they would be worth that much, but once I found out they were worth that much, that even more kind of weighs in on my theory that he's probably not even in the United States. That he probably did go to Mexico or some other place that doesn't have an extradition agreement with the United States, possibly in like South America or something. So I honestly I don't think he's in the United States. I'm real sure that he's not on that island that dog is searching because who hides on the island? If they were to pin you in, where are you gonna go? I mean, I'm real sure he don't swim that well to swim that far to another shore without getting caught. So I don't think he's dumb by a long shot. I don't think he's some kind of like criminal mastermind, but I don't think he's dumb enough to think that he could hide on an island successfully, especially not an island in a public camping area and apparently a popular public camping area. Because then you run a higher risk of running into people, being seen, caught on video, caught on a camera, just like those people are posting that selfie and saying they think that's Brian in the background because they were camping right next to him. So it seems to me that if he were going to try to hide out and rough it, that he would do it in a more open area, a less populated or less trafficked area. Yeah. I mean, if you got any kind of camping experience, I've been camping before. I won't call myself an outdoors person, but I've been camping before. And I think that with my knowledge of camping, that I could probably survive in the woods a couple of months with little or no money as long as I had some supplies up front. I mean, I know how to fish, I know how to make a fire. I know the basics of what you can and can't eat off a bush. If it's bright colored, leave it alone. It's probably poisonous. So, under desperate circumstances, I think most people, if they had to, could probably survive in the woods for at least a few weeks without managing to get themselves killed or eaten by a bear. But because he does have some experience, I think that he could well last longer than what they give him credit for, especially having his parents' financial backing and support. Obviously, they support him and whatever head start they gave him. God, for all we know, he's at some cabin out in the middle of nowhere that they own through some tertiary shell company because it's being said that his parents are into real estate and that the attorney that's actually representing them now, Bertolino, is a real estate attorney. So there's no telling where he could be. We're thinking well, they're thinking he's in the woods somewhere or on some island hideaway, and he's probably comfy in a cabin somewhere up in the Smoky Mountains. But the parents, I believe they know more details. Now, according to the law in Florida, they can't be charged with accessory after the fact, but that is only on the Florida law. Federal law supersedes state law, and so he could, they could be possibly charged by the feds with accessory after the fact and even some more other charges. Plus, if Florida really wants to get him, wants to get the parents, they can because Florida is really good for finding obscure laws or laws that are very similar but slightly differently worded. I'll tell you an incident that I know personally. There was a person who had a charge on the state level, and most people know that when the feds pick up a charge, pick up a case, the state usually drops all their charges. Well, this particular person was charged in the state with, and I'm not going to say their exact charges, just because I know there's some people out there who know me and know the situation. Let's say they were charged with uh, burglary and carjacking, right? On the state level. Feds come in and pick up the case. Usually, the state will drop theirs. Feds pick up the case and they charge them with burglary and armed carjacking. Well, what the state did was not drop the charges, but they just rearranged them. They charged them with armed burglary and carjacking. So technically, it was a different charge, but essentially, it was the same. And I can see Florida doing something like that in this case, to where they're not charged specifically with accessory after the fact or aiding and abetting per se, because that's something they can't technically charge the family with, the parents with, but something similar. hindering a prosecution, uh, interfering with an investigation, lying to the police, uh, just anything, destruction of evidence, some other related charges that would serve the same purpose, possibly that carry the same amount of time or the same weight as far as the degree of felony or misdemeanor or whatever. So I definitely think the parents know a lot more, because otherwise all these shenanigans that are going on wouldn't be going on. Like, if my son came home under the conditions that Brian came home, and then suddenly he wants to go camping by himself in a wildlife preserve, but I don't hear from him for days, my mind is automatically going to think something is foul. We don't know. He may have come home and told them somebody else killed her and I saw it and I'm terrified, or she fell off a cliff by accident. We don't know what he told them. They may have thought that he was innocent, but then his behavior doesn't line up to that of an innocent person, because what dude in his right mind and who is totally innocent in a situation where your fiance is missing and then later found dead would do the things that he's doing? So there had to be a point where the parents, if they didn't actually know, then they didn't actually know details, but they had to come to a point where they're like, you know what, he's guilty of sin, or he must have done something other than what he's, it's got to be something different than what he said. What he told us can't be the truth, you know? And at that point, loving your child or not, I can't imagine that this girl lived in your home for a year or better, was engaged to your son. Your grandson is calling her auntie, so obviously there's a close bond within the family. Your daughter is on national TV saying that I thought of her like a sister, and under those circumstances, you aren't talking. Loving your child or not, right is right and wrong is wrong. There has to come a point where you as a person have to stand up for what's right and set the right example for your kid. But if they're doing all this for him in this situation, and I imagine that he's never really been held accountable for anything by his parents. He was probably very coddled growing up. He probably got away with, I ain't gonna say it because, but you know the old saying, but he probably got away with everything under the sun. If he got in trouble at school, they were probably the first ones up there blaming the teacher, or at least that's what it looks like from the outside looking in based on their present actions. I found it kind of interesting that Dog, yeah, he could have a blow up boat. If I were in his situation though, I don't think I'd be on a boat anywhere. Not especially not a blow up boat, something that would stand out like that. Because but then again, this is my thinking and not his. My thinking is I first of all wouldn't be in a populated area or a popular area. So if you're in an unpopular area with a blow up boat, you're gonna stand out like a sore thumb. But he might not be thinking like that. Dog versus the FBI. Now the FBI has had this case since basically day one. They haven't been near this DeSoto uh, Park or Fort DeSoto. Then suddenly Dog pops up and he knows about this camping trip that they took as a family, and he knows the dates that they had reservations, the dates that they were there, how many people came and how many people left. And the FBI is just now going to get surveillance camera footage. My next reasonable thought is, how much involvement does law enforcement have in protecting this dude? Because it's known that one of his parents, and I can't recall which one, but one of his parents was employed by the state's attorney's office, and that they have some ties within the Northport Police Department. There's actually an officer, Laundrie, who works there, and that is not a very common last name and nor a very common spelling of the word. So it stands to reason that they're most likely related. So how much was law enforcement involved in protecting Brian from questioning or investigation? I, before I even knew about the parent working for state attorney or about the possible relative that works on the police force, it struck me as odd that under the circumstances, with him coming home with this van and his fiance is missing in the middle of nowhere after they were supposed to be on a camping trip that they didn't even make it halfway through. He pops up without her van. She's reported missing, and nobody talked to him. Nobody questioned him. Personal knowledge here. I've seen cases where it wasn't as serious a situation as this, and sometimes as serious, but where police had a person of interest and they looked for that person of interest like they were looking for a suspect. They brought them in and they questioned them. They did not stop looking for them or stop pumping their face out to the public as somebody they want to talk to until they had actually gotten to the point of talking to them. So I find it hard to believe that this situation didn't merit them finding a way to talk to him about what the situation was and where was Gabby. They said they went to the house and that the parents wouldn't allow them access to him. He's an adult. So had he been a minor, then the parents could step in and say, no, you can't talk to him. But he's an adult. And if he's an adult and you're going there to speak to him and you know for a fact or suspect that he's there in the house or you're being told he's here, but you can't talk to him, really the parents had no standing to stop the police from talking to him, at least on that occasion. For him to tell them, look, I don't want to talk to you. I don't have anything to say to you. So none of that made sense to me from the beginning because it's not like he was a minor who was not legally capable of making a decision of whether or not he wanted to talk to the police. Yeah, that's possible, but I just don't see that lasting very long. And I don't see, yeah, but that's once he lawyered up. But the thing is, it was stated that the parents prevented the police from speaking to him at first. So really, the parents really had no legal standing to stop the police from talking to him, even if all he was going to tell them was, "Here's my lawyer's information." The parents had no legal standing because of him being an adult to say, "Hey, you can't talk to him." I mean, that's my understanding of it, which is what partly leads me to believe that there is some type of relationship between someone in that family and someone in that police department that's aiding in helping Brian to avoid like questioning, to avoid different things. It's interesting too that they didn't hire a criminal attorney, they hired a real estate attorney, which is probably just an attorney that they already had on hand, and he's fully capable of giving basic legal advice on a criminal case, such as don't talk to the police. Now, if it ever comes to a point where he's charged with like a homicide, then they'll probably get a different attorney, a criminal attorney. Then there is, and I want to look a little bit more into this because I really haven't found much on it other than like once or twice it was mentioned. I heard he lawyered up. Yeah, now that's what I heard. He got a lawyer as soon as he got back in town. But either way, the parents still had no legal, as far as I'm understanding, the parents still had no legal like ground to stand on to prevent the police from actually speaking to him if he was there in the house, even if all he was going to tell them is talk to my lawyer. But the way it's being presented is as if the parents are basically acting as a barrier and shielding him from police contact at all. And I just don't see how that happens. And I say that because I just feel like this case is handled entirely different than most other cases are handled when there's someone who shows up under the circumstances that he showed up back at home with a missing fiance. You got her van, nobody's heard from her, her family hasn't heard from her, but oh, we're just going to let you not talk to us. We're not going to find any way to bring you in or talk to you or question you or, you know, because they could actually have demanded that he come and speak to them with the lawyer. Whether he went or not, I don't know if he could get out of that, but it seems like the police did not put forth any type of effort to try and get any information out of him, is what I'm saying. And it could be that they did and they're just not really talking about it. But that one guy that was representing the police, the Northport Police Department, and who was speaking on camera, I mean, if his whole vibe is a representation of how that case is being viewed and handled by Northport Police Department, then I have to say that I don't think they put forth any effort at all to try to really talk to him or anybody else in that family to find out any details of what could possibly have happened to Gabby at all. Because that guy was so nonchalant and just dismissive. I mean, at one point he was talking to them. He was like, I'm not trying to be out here all day. Like, that's your job. You're a police officer. You're supposed to, if they assigned you to talk to the media, that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to be out here to talk to the media. Oh, is that what? Huh. And I wonder how that affects my thought of whether how guilty the parents are for you to just immediately open the door and hand them a lawyer's card. Of course, I mean, I don't know. It could be entirely different circumstances. Maybe by some slight chance, yeah, they definitely dropped the ball. Maybe by some slight chance, he did not have anything to do with what happened to Gabby, and he's terrified because he feels like it's going to get blamed on him, even though he didn't do it. That is a possibility, a very slim to none possibility, but it is a possibility. So maybe he lawyered up to protect himself from falling under some type of false accusation. That remains to be seen. We won't really know the truth of that until they find him and bring him in and get a chance to question him, or until uh, the final autopsy reports and whatever charges come from that are made known um, in Gabby's case. And then there's a rumor that he was hearing voices and all this stuff like that. I have been looking for information or any type of like social media posts or anything out there that would hint that he had any type of mental issues or that this was some kind type of problem before, but not even any of his friends have, because friends come out of the woodworks in times like this and get to talking and saying little stuff, but not even any of them have publicly mentioned any like Brian is crazy type stuff or he did this weird stuff when we were in middle school or you know he still had imaginary friends in 10th grade or nothing like that has been said so far. So I have to think that maybe that hearing voices is just a rumor that somebody was trying to float in his defense. And true, all he had to do was make a statement. Truth is he lawyered up already. Huh. Gabby's friend told, is that the Rose friend that they're talking about, the one that she was supposed to be meeting up with in Yosemite or something, or Yellowstone? But yeah, all he had to do was make a statement. He had a lawyer. It's not like his lawyer was going to let him answer a question, even though he's not a criminal attorney. I'm sure he had enough common sense not to let him answer questions that would get him in trouble. or make him look guilty. So yeah, all he had to do was make a statement. And it ain't even like he had to answer questions. He could have simply went in there and said, hey, this is what happened, or this is what didn't happen, or I didn't have anything to do with it, or something, and not even answer a question, because you can talk without answering a question. He could have written the statement and sent it through his attorney or anything. And you're absolutely right. All he had to do was make a statement. But by him choosing not to make a statement, choosing to be so hush hush, to lawyer up, then to just completely disappear, I know that technically that's not evidence of guilt, but I mean, most of us have been living on this earth a long time, and most of us have had enough experience with other people and other situations and reading different news stories to know that his actions line up quite nicely with people who have in the past been guilty. PhoneGate. Yeah, when that day when they left and went to Orlando for business or legal reasons. And I was it Bertolino that they went to see, that same lawyer? Or was it possibly a different lawyer? Um, so there's the phone thing, right? So apparently Brian and his mother, or it's being said an older woman, went into an AT&T store and that he got a new phone, set up a new account. There's something about Brian and phones, because if you recall from the body cam footage from Utah, they asked him about a phone and he said he didn't have a phone. Remember, he told them he didn't have a phone. He went and got Gabby's phone out of the van and gave that to police officers. Now, later in that interaction, Brian pulls a phone out of his pocket, and when the police ask him for his phone number, he immediately recites a phone number. Now, at the time when they were talking to him and getting a phone number from him, when he pulled the phone out of his pocket, Gabby had her phone in the back of the police car. So if he didn't have a phone and Gabby had her phone in her pocket, I mean, Gabby had her phone talking on it in the back of the police car. Where did the phone come from and who does it belong to that was in his pocket? And if he doesn't have a phone, whose number did he give them? Yeah, that makes sense that it would be easier to fly into Orlando. And then with everything that was going on in Northport, I'm sure he didn't want to be caught up in the middle of that. Less likelihood that there would be crowds actually following these people to Orlando to see what they were doing, as opposed to following them right there in Northport. Somebody might actually have done that. Then there's the Twittergate thing, where supposedly Brian has been caught using a secret Twitter account. And there were some screenshots shown of like some names and some addresses and things like that. Now, I can't say that I feel convinced that Brian has a secret, or at least I'm not convinced that that was Brian's secret Twitter account based on the information that was seen, because there are some account linkages there that might line up, but there are also some key linkages that aren't there. And it is very easy in this day and age to make fake accounts. And also, with the resources available on the internet, it's not hard to figure out the passwords and stuff for the average person, because most people use stuff like their kids, some combination of their kids' names and dates of birth, or significant dates in their life, significant people's names, old addresses, old phone numbers, a pet's name. Most people who aren't really worried about security, just your average everyday person, aren't going to go to the trouble of making some super secret, hard to crack password for each account that they have. They're going to use the same or very similar passwords on all their accounts. So it would not be hard for someone to even get in there into a legit account of his and link it to another account. It's really easy to find somebody's address. I don't know about a VPN match. Now, if they were saying like an IP match, maybe, but a VPN match would be much harder to make because just for the way that VPNs work. And with some VPNs, you can make them look like you're at a certain place specifically, not just like a country or something, but you can make them look like you're at a specific location. Even with IPs, it's really not that hard even to um, fake an IP address. Honestly, it's harder, but it's not that hard that it's impossible. And then by the age of the account and the things that were posted on the account, I actually went and scrolled through and went back on that dude's account, and I'm not seeing it. Yeah, but see, an IP address is one of the easiest things to fake if you know what you're doing. That's how. I mean, just think about it. They've got technology right now that I could call you and it'll look like I'm calling you from your phone, your same phone number, whatever your phone number is. I can spoof it and look like I'm calling you from your same phone number. So just saying that it's really easy to fake information, even digital information. It's so easy to fake now. So it's hard really for me to just off the cuff believe that just because you show me a screenshot of an address or a phone number or an IP address or an email for me to say, okay, yeah, that's definitely them. I would need something more concrete. And it just leaves a lot open to question. Like me personally, based on what he put up as proof, which he could have other proof that he's just not sharing. Now that's a possibility too. But simply based off what he showed, I would never have gone live in front of 13,000 people and pointed a finger and said, "This is Brian's fake account." Yeah, it could go either way. So anyway, apparently the police were called to the Laundrie home 3 times on the day before Gabby was reported missing. And they've been saying that Gabby's dad actually went to the Laundrie's home and that whatever happened there is the reason that they ended up reporting her missing. But I want to show you this because I was trying to look into that and see what was going on with it. And this is from the New York Post. I'm not going to read the whole article, just this little section here. It says that according to Fox News, the second September the 10th call involved Petito's father, Joe Petito. Joe did not physically go to the Laundrie's home, but expressed concern over his daughter, the outlet reported Thursday. Cops returned to the house shortly after 1 p.m. and 4:30 p.m. September 11th for follow-up calls and an agency assist call shortly before 8:30 p.m. with a report submitted after the day's third visit. So apparently Joe Petito did not actually physically go knock on these people's door. It says that he expressed concern and that the second 911 call or police call on the 10th involved him. So maybe he called police and sent the police over there for a welfare check or to see if they could get information about his daughter or whatever. but he was definitely involved with the police being at the Laundrie home for at least one of those calls. He was directly involved. The follow up calls could have been the parents calling back because I don't know, maybe they felt like he was going to come over there or they wanted to know what their next move could be. I don't know. But apparently he did not go knock on their door because it has been being said that he actually went to their home. And the FBI was at their house again today, earlier in the day. This time they went into the that camper, that embed camper there in the driveway, and collected something in a small specimen container, uh, similar to like the specimen containers they use at the hospital when they need to check your urine for something. Uh, they came out of the camper and they went back into the house. It was a male officer and a female officer. The female officer is the one that had the specimen cup in her hand. This article I am going to read because I didn't read it completely. I just scanned through it enough to make sure that it was about today's incident since there's been so much back and forth at the house. It says the FBI visited Brian Laundrie's family home in Northport, Florida, again on Thursday afternoon amid the ongoing search for him. Two FBI agents arrived at the home in a black SUV and brought a large brown paper bag inside. They did not depart with the same bag. One agent also briefly climbed into a camper van parked on the property. Stephen Bertolino, the Laundrie family attorney, told CNN the FBI were there to collect items which could assist them in the search for Brian. The FBI is at the Laundrie home today to collect some personal items belonging to Brian that will assist the canines in their search for Brian, he said. There is nothing more to this. The home visit comes amid the weeks long search for Laundrie, whose parents told authorities they last saw him on September 14th when he left home to go to a nearby nature reserve. His fiancee, Gabby Petito, disappeared late last month and was later found dead in Wyoming, near where the couple had last been seen together. And the rest of the article is basically rehashing stuff we've already uh, gone over. Multiple police calls to the residents, a federal arrest warrant, events after he came back to Florida. So they were there again today, collecting some more items, and I'm wondering what they could have been getting because they already like got some stuff in a previous search that they said was to help the canines in finding him, and that was when I believe that was the same day that they first went into the gray Mustang before they towed it. When they like went in the house and they came out and they went in the gray Mustang, popped the trunk. That day, I believe, is the day that they said they got some items out of the house to help the canines in searching for him. So I don't know, maybe items lose too much scent over time and they need fresher items or something. I really couldn't tell you. And I'm not sure how much I put in that attorney Bertolino says. Now, more body cam footage has come out in the Brian Laundrie and Gabby Petito case. This is the second body cam from a different officer, and it is about an hour long. I've watched parts of it, but I haven't watched it in full. So I will leave it up to you. If you want to watch it tonight, we'll watch it tonight. If not, we can watch it tomorrow, and I can kind of get a chance to look at it and get some markers for key time stamps instead of just watching the whole thing just raw. Because I haven't really watched this. I've just watched portions. But what I did watch was fairly interesting. So what the heck? I think I'll just play it. Go ahead and do this. And this. Come on. Make sure we got it on a good, yep. Yeah, let me get some volume so I can hear it. Matter of fact, I'm gonna go ahead and mute my mic.
How's it going?
How are we doing?
Good. Hey, we got a call about a male hitting a female and the two of them getting in this vehicle and taking off.
So I don't want to try and defend myself here, but I pushed her away. She gets really worked up, and when she does, she swings and she had her cell phone in her hand. So I was just trying to push her away. But Gabby, I'm talking to my fiance, right?
For field page medical, and let us know if we need to head that way. If it's nothing more pressing. It's simple. At this point, they're going to get there before I can get traffic.
Where's she at? Is that your car?
He dealt with her. I don't know where he put her.
He's got some marks on this chin and his right eye.
Is she in my car?
Yes.
This isn't my car. Oh, she is in here.
So we got the lock in.
Yeah. Hey, how are you?
Good.
My name's Eric. I'm with Moab Police. What's your name?
Gabby.
Gabby, how old are you?
I'm 22.
What happened?
I'm having a stress